The hallway smelled like antiseptic and fear. Rafael Morello hadn't moved in hours. The powerful mafia boss who could silence a city now sat motionless outside room 306, staring at the white door that held the only person who had ever made him feel human. His suit was wrinkled. His usually perfect hair hung loose across his forehead. Ryan Cooper, his second in command, had tried 3 times to get him to eat something. Raphael hadn't even looked at him. The door opened. Hannah Reed stepped out, the young nurse's face pale beneath the fluorescent lights. Her voice trembled as she met his eyes. "She woke up," she said softly, "but she doesn't remember you." The words hit him like ice water. Raphael stood slowly, his 6'3" frame unfolding from the uncomfortable hospital chair. His dark eyes searched Hannah's face for any sign she might be wrong. "What do you mean, she doesn't remember me?" "I welcome you, my beautiful family and friends. Please click subscribe. Do well to like this video and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more thrilling stories, and trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now, let's continue." Hannah's hands twisted together. The doctor can explain better, but... Raphael was already moving past her. His hand found the door handle, and for the first time in his 34 years of life, Rafael Morello's hand shook. The room was bathed in afternoon sunlight. Machines beeped steadily, monitoring vitals that had been silent for 3 weeks. And there, propped up against white pillows, was Grace Morgan. Her green eyes were open. Alive. Looking at him like he was a stranger. "Grace," her name left his lips like a prayer. She tilted her head slightly, studying him with polite confusion. Her blonde hair was shorter now, cut by the nurses during her coma. The bandage on her temple had been changed to a smaller one. She looked fragile, breakable. She looked like she had no idea who he was. "I'm sorry," Grace said, her voice hoarse from disuse. "Do I know you?" The question shattered something inside him. Raphael stood frozen in the doorway, unable to move forward or back. This was the woman who had held him through nightmares, who had kissed his scars and told him he was more than the monster everyone believed him to be. Now she looked at him with the same cautious distance everyone else did. Dr. Mason Carter appeared behind him, gently touching Raphael's shoulder. "Mr. Morello, perhaps we should talk outside." Raphael didn't move. His eyes stayed locked on Grace's face, searching for any flicker of recognition. Nothing. "Please," Mason said more firmly, "let her rest." Grace watched the exchange with interest. Even without her memories, she could read the pain in the tall man's dark eyes. Something about him felt important, but when she reached for the memory, she found only emptiness. Raphael finally stepped back. Before the door closed, he heard Grace ask Hannah, "Who was that?" The hallway felt colder than before. Mason led him to a small consultation room. The doctor was young for his position, maybe 35, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He'd been treating Grace since the ambulance brought her in, half dead and covered in burns. "Her memory loss appears to be selective," Mason explained, pulling up brain scans on his tablet. "The trauma from the explosion caused significant swelling in the temporal lobe. Some memories may return gradually, others might be gone permanently." "How much does she remember?" "Her childhood, her nursing training, friends from before about 2 years ago." Mason paused. "But the last 18 months seem to be fragmented at best. She doesn't remember working at the private clinic. She doesn't remember." "Me," Raphael finished, his jaw clenched. "She doesn't remember any of it." Mason nodded sympathetically. "I'm afraid not. In cases like this, forcing memories can actually cause more harm. The brain needs time to heal, to reconnect neural pathways that were damaged." Raphael's mind went back 18 months, to the night that changed everything. 18 months ago. The private clinic on Riverside Drive was supposed to be neutral ground. No gang affiliations, no questions asked. Just discreet medical care for those who couldn't go to regular hospitals. Raphael had taken 3 bullets in a territory dispute with the Torino family. His men had dragged him there, bleeding and cursing. The regular doctor was out. Instead, a young nurse with green eyes and steady hands had saved his life. "You're lucky," Grace had said, working to stop the bleeding. 2 inches to the left and we wouldn't be having this conversation. "Lucky isn't the word I'd use," Raphael had groaned. She'd looked up then, meeting his eyes without the fear he was used to seeing. "You're right. Lucky people don't end up shot at 2 in the morning." That was the beginning. He'd returned to the clinic weeks later, claiming he needed follow-up care. Then again, claiming complications. By the 4th visit, Grace had called him out. "You're fine," she'd said, arms crossed. "Your wounds healed perfectly, so why do you keep coming back?" "Maybe I like the company." She'd laughed, not a nervous laugh, but genuine amusement. "A man like you must have plenty of company." "Not like yours." That night, he'd waited until her shift ended. They'd had coffee at an all-night diner. She'd known who he was. Everyone in the city knew the Morello name, but she'd treated him like a person, not a monster or a meal ticket. Their relationship had been impossible from the start. The daughter of a deceased cop and the city's most feared crime boss. But somehow, in the quiet moments they stole together, it had worked. She'd moved into his penthouse 6 months later, after someone tried to use her to get to him. He'd protected her, loved her, promised her he'd find a way out of the life. Then came the explosion. "Mr. Morello." Raphael blinked, returning to the present. Mason was watching him with concern. "What triggers the memories?" Raphael asked. "It varies. Familiar scents, sounds, emotional connections. Sometimes trauma victims recover memories during moments of high stress or emotion, but there's no guaranteed method." Ryan Cooper appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. "Boss, we need to talk." Raphael knew that tone. It meant trouble, but he couldn't leave, not yet. "Whatever it is can wait." "No," Ryan said firmly. "It can't, it's about her." Mason excused himself, giving them privacy. Ryan closed the door and lowered his voice. "Tyler Brooks knows she's alive." The name sent ice through Raphael's veins. Tyler Brooks ran the East Side operations, had been trying to muscle in on Morello territory for years. He'd been behind the explosion that nearly killed Grace, though they'd never been able to prove it. "How?" "Someone at the hospital talked. Maybe staff, maybe another patient's visitor. Doesn't matter. He knows she's here. And he knows she's vulnerable." Raphael's hands curled into fists. "Double the security. I want men on every entrance, every exit. No one gets near her without going through us first." "That'll draw attention. The cops are already sniffing around because of the explosion investigation." "I don't care." Ryan studied his boss, his friend. They'd known each other since they were kids running small-time jobs in Little Italy. He'd never seen Raphael like this, desperate, lost. "You need to consider the possibility that this is for the best," Ryan said carefully. "If she doesn't remember you, doesn't remember our world, maybe she can have a normal life. Safe, away from all this." The suggestion hung between them like a challenge. Raphael's jaw tightened. "She had a normal life. She gave it up for me. And look where it got her." The words stung because they were true. Grace was lying in a hospital bed, her memories stolen because she'd loved him, because his enemies had seen that love as weakness. "I can't just walk away," Raphael said quietly. "Not from her." "Then what's the plan? Sit by her bedside hoping she suddenly remembers, while Brooks circles like a vulture." Before Raphael could answer, they heard commotion in the hallway. A woman's voice, loud and angry. "I don't care who he is. She's my best friend, and I'm not letting some criminal near her." Raphael opened the door to find Ava Cooper, no relation to Ryan, despite the shared surname, arguing with one of his men. She was small, maybe 5'2", with fierce brown eyes and dark hair pulled into a messy bun. She wore scrubs, probably just off her shift at the pediatric hospital across town. When she saw Raphael, her anger focused like a laser. "You," she spat, "you have some nerve showing up here." "Ava." No, you don't get to talk. You nearly got her killed. She was happy before you. Safe. Normal. Then you came along with your dangerous life and your enemies, and now look at her. Each word was a knife, made worse because Raphael had thought them all himself. She doesn't even remember you, Ava continued, her voice breaking slightly. Maybe that's the universe giving her a second chance, a chance to get away from you. That's enough, Ryan said, stepping forward. Ava turned on him. And you, his enabler, how do you sleep at night knowing what your world did to an innocent woman? The same way you sleep knowing you weren't there to protect her, Ryan shot back. The words hung heavy. Ava's face paled, then flushed with renewed anger. I'm getting a restraining order, she said, looking back at Raphael. You come near her again and I'll have you arrested. She pushed past them toward Grace's room. Raphael didn't try to stop her. He watched through the small window as Ava hugged Grace carefully, both women crying. Grace might not remember their friendship completely, but she recognized comfort when she saw it. She's right, Raphael said quietly. This is my fault. Ryan said nothing. There was no point in lying. They stood in the hallway as the sun set, painting the white walls orange and red. Like blood, Raphael thought, like fire. Hannah approached them hesitantly. Mr. Morello, she's asking about you. Raphael's heart jumped. She is. She wants to know why you looked so sad. She said. Hannah paused. She said you looked at her like someone who'd lost everything. Because he had. Raphael returned to the room, despite Ava's protests. Grace was sitting up more fully now, sipping water through a straw. When she saw him, she offered a small smile. I'm sorry, she said. About before, Ava explained that we knew each other, that we were close. Close, such a small word for what they'd been. It's not your fault, Raphael said, keeping his distance. Ava watched him like a hawk from her chair. They tell me there was an explosion, a car bomb. Grace touched her temple where the bandage sat. Were you there? The memory crashed over him. 3 weeks ago. They'd been leaving a restaurant, a quiet place outside the city where no one knew them. Grace had been laughing at something, her hand in his as they walked to the car. Raphael had noticed the wire a second too late. He'd pushed her away just as the world exploded. The force had thrown him back, his ears ringing, the world spinning. Through the smoke and flames, he'd seen her lying motionless on the asphalt, blood pooling beneath her head. He'd crawled to her, his own injuries forgotten. Her pulse had been weak, thready, her breathing shallow. He'd held her as the sirens grew closer, begging her to stay with him. Don't leave me, Grace, please. I can't do this without you. She hadn't responded. I was there, Raphael said simply. Grace studied him, those green eyes trying to piece together a puzzle with missing pieces. Were we together, romantically? Ava made a disgusted sound. Raphael ignored her. Yes. For how long? A year. Grace processed this, looking down at her hands, at the pale line on her ring finger where something had once sat. I had a ring. You did. What happened to it? The paramedics removed it. It's in your belongings. She was quiet for a moment. Then softly, did you love me? The question broke him. Raphael's voice was rough when he answered. More than anything in this world. Grace looked up, startled by the raw emotion in his voice. For a second, just a heartbeat, something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, memory, but then it was gone. I'm sorry I don't remember, she said. That must be very hard for you. Hard, another inadequate word. You need to rest, Ava interrupted. Visiting hours are almost over anyway. Raphael knew when he was being dismissed. He stood, his movements careful, controlled. The way they always were when he was trying not to fall apart. I'll come back tomorrow, he said, if that's all right. Grace nodded. I'd like that, maybe. Maybe talking will help me remember. He left before Ava could object. In the hallway, Ryan was coordinating with the security team. Ethan Parker had arrived, another trusted lieutenant, his scarred face set in grim lines. Tyler's making moves, Ethan reported. Word is he's planning something for tomorrow night. Let him come, Raphael said darkly. Boss, you're not thinking clearly, Ryan warned. We need to be smart about this. Smart, Raphael had been smart. He'd been careful. He'd kept Grace secret for months before their relationship became known. And still, his world had reached out and nearly destroyed her. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello, Raphael. Tyler Brooks' smooth voice filled his ear. I heard your girl woke up. Miracle of modern medicine, isn't it? Raphael's grip tightened on the phone. Ryan and Ethan moved closer, alert. Though I hear she doesn't remember you, that must sting. All that history gone, like it never happened. What do you want, Brooks? What I've always wanted. Your territory, your operations, your crown. Tyler paused. But now I'm thinking I might want something else too. That pretty nurse of yours. Maybe without her memories, she'd be open to new experiences. The phone cracked in Raphael's hand. You go near her, and I'll kill you. Such violence, Morello, and here I thought love had made you soft. Tyler laughed. Tell you what, I'll make you a deal. Walk away from everything. The business, the territory, the power, just disappear. Do that and I'll leave her alone. And if I don't? Then I finish what I started 3 weeks ago. Only this time, I'll make sure she doesn't wake up. The line went dead. Raphael stood in the fluorescent-lit hallway, rage and fear warring in his chest. Ryan and Ethan waited for orders. Call everyone in, Raphael said finally. Every soldier, every contact. Tyler wants a war, he's got one. What about Grace? Ryan asked. Raphael looked back toward her room. Through the small window, he could see her sleeping, Ava still standing guard. We protect her, whatever it takes. But even as he said it, he wondered if protecting her meant staying close or letting go. The thought of walking away from her felt like tearing out his own heart. But if it kept her safe? No, he'd tried leaving her alone once, early in their relationship. She tracked him down, furious. 10 months ago. You don't get to make that choice for me, Grace had said, standing in his office uninvited and unafraid. You don't get to decide I'm better off without you. Grace, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You think you're protecting me by pushing me away. But here's the thing, Raphael Morello, I knew who you were when I chose you. I knew the risks, and I chose you anyway. Why? He'd asked, genuinely bewildered. Why would you choose this, choose me? She'd crossed the room, taken his face in her hands. Because underneath all of this, you're a good man. Because you make me feel safe and cherished and alive. Because I love you, you impossible, infuriating man. That was the night he'd given her the ring. Not an engagement ring, not exactly. A promise ring, she'd called it. A promise that he'd find a way out, that they'd have a future beyond the shadow of his family's legacy. Now that promise lay broken, like her memories. Raphael spent the night in the hospital parking lot, unable to leave, but banned from staying inside after visiting hours. His men formed a perimeter, watching for threats. As dawn broke, he saw Mason Carter arriving for his morning rounds. Doctor, Raphael called out. Mason paused, wary. Mr. Morello, you've been here all night. Is there anything, any treatment, any procedure, that might help her remember? Mason sighed. Memory recovery isn't like setting a broken bone. The brain is complex, delicate. There are experimental treatments, but they carry risks. What kind of risks? Further memory loss, personality changes, in rare cases, permanent damage. Raphael's shoulders dropped. So we just wait. Sometimes that's all we can do. But Mr. Morello, I have to ask, is it really her memories you want back or her love? The question caught him off guard. Because those might not be the same thing, Mason continued. Even if she remembers your relationship, she might not feel the same way. Trauma changes people. Before Raphael could respond, his phone rang. Ethan. Boss, we have a problem. That journalist, Arya Grant, she's here asking questions about Grace and the explosion. Arya Grant was an investigative reporter for the City Tribune, known for her exposés on organized crime. If she connected Grace to him publicly, It would paint an even bigger target on Grace's back. Raphael found Arya in the hospital cafe, her red hair distinctive even from behind. She was typing on her laptop, a cup of coffee growing cold beside her. "Ms. Grant." She looked up, her blue eyes sharp with intelligence. No fear, just professional interest. "Raphael Morello, the man himself." She gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit, let's talk." "There's nothing to talk about." "Oh, I think there is. Like why the city's most powerful crime boss has been haunting this hospital for 3 weeks. Or why Grace Morgan, a nurse with no criminal record, ended up nearly dead in what looks suspiciously like a professional car bombing." "You're fishing." "I'm investigating. There's a difference." Arya pulled out a folder, spreading photos across the table. Surveillance shots of Raphael and Grace together, dating back months. "Wanna try again?" Raphael's jaw tightened. "What do you want?" "The truth, on record." "Not happening." "Then I run the story as is. Innocent nurse critical after mafia romance goes wrong. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" "You destroy her life." "Her life was destroyed the moment she got involved with you." Arya's expression softened slightly. "Look, I'm not unsympathetic. By all accounts, Grace Morgan is a good person who fell for the wrong man. But the public has a right to know." "The public has a right to safety," Raphael interrupted. "You publish that story, you make her a target for every rival family looking for leverage against me." "So you admit she's leverage?" "I admit she's innocent, and she deserves to recover without becoming a headline." Arya studied him for a long moment. "You really love her?" It wasn't a question, but Raphael answered anyway. "Yes." "Enough to let her go." Before he could answer, Hannah Reed appeared, slightly out of breath. "Mr. Morello, she's asking for you. She had a dream and she's upset and she keeps saying your name." Raphael was moving before Hannah finished talking. Behind him, Arya called out, "This isn't over, Morello." He found Grace sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face. Ava was trying to comfort her, but Grace was inconsolable. When she saw Raphael, she reached for him instinctively. "I dreamed about fire," she gasped between sobs. "And you were there, and you were hurt, and I couldn't reach you. There was so much blood, and someone was screaming, and I think it was me." Raphael carefully took her outstretched hand. Her fingers gripped his desperately. "It's okay," he murmured. "You're safe, I'm here." It felt so real, like a memory, not a dream. She looked up at him, green eyes swimming with tears. "Was it real? Did that happen?" He squeezed her hand gently. "There was an explosion, but we both survived. We're both here." "Why can't I remember?" The frustration in her voice was palpable. "Everyone keeps telling me things about my life, about us, but it's like hearing about strangers. Ava shows me pictures, tells me stories, but none of it feels real." "It takes time." "I don't want time." She pulled her hand away, anger replacing tears. "I want my life back. I want to remember why I loved you, why I was with you despite." She gestured vaguely. "Despite what you are." The words stung, but Raphael didn't flinch. "What am I?" he asked quietly. Grace met his eyes, even without her memories. She wasn't naive. "Dangerous," she said. "Ava told me, others have hinted, you're not just some businessman, are you?" "No." "You're a criminal." "Yes." "Did I know, before I mean, did I know what you were when we were together?" "You knew everything." Grace absorbed this, looking down at her hands again. "I must have loved you very much." "Why do you say that?" "Because the Grace that Ava describes, the one in those photos, she was smart, careful. She wouldn't have risked everything for anything less than extraordinary love." The hope in Raphael's chest was almost painful. "Do you want to know about us?" he asked. "I could tell you." "No," Grace said quickly, then softer. "Not yet. I need to figure out who I am now before I can understand who I was then." Raphael stood to leave, but Grace caught his sleeve. "But don't stop coming," she said. "I don't remember you, but I feel safer when you're here. Is that strange?" "No," Raphael said, his voice rough. That's not strange at all. He left the room to find the hallway full of tension. Ryan and Ethan were facing off with two police detectives. One of them, Raphael recognized, Detective Michelle Torres, one of the few clean cops in the city. "Mr. Morello," she said coolly, "we need to talk about the explosion." "I have nothing to say without my lawyer." "How about with a warrant?" She held up the paper. "We have evidence linking the bombing to Tyler Brooks, but we need your cooperation to make it stick." Raphael almost laughed. The police wanted him to testify against another crime boss. The irony was thick. "Like I said, lawyer." Torres stepped closer, lowering her voice. "That woman in there deserves justice. I know you care about her. Help us put Brooks away." "The justice system failed her the moment it let Brooks operate freely for years," Raphael said coldly. "I'll handle this my way." "Your way will start a war." "The war started when he tried to kill her." Torres shook her head. "This is why she got hurt in the first place, because you think violence solves everything." Before Raphael could respond, Ella Thompson, one of the floor nurses, came running. "There's a man trying to get into Miss Morgan's room. Security is holding him, but—" Raphael was already moving. He found one of Tyler's men, Marcus, struggling against hospital security. When Marcus saw Raphael, he smiled. "Tyler sends his regards," Marcus said. "And a message, tick-tock, Morello, the offer won't last forever." Raphael's fist connected with Marcus's jaw before anyone could stop him. The man dropped, blood streaming from his nose. "Tell Brooks he just signed his death warrant," Raphael growled. Detective Torres arrested both Marcus and Raphael on the spot. The last thing Raphael saw as they cuffed him was Grace standing in her doorway, supported by Ava, watching with confused horror as they led him away. "I'm sorry," he mouthed to her. She didn't respond, but something in her eyes had changed. A flicker of something, memory, or just disappointment in confirming what kind of man he really was. As the police car pulled away from the hospital, Raphael heard Ryan's voice through the phone. They'd let him keep until booking. "Don't worry, boss. We'll handle security. No one will touch her." But Raphael wasn't worried about Grace's physical safety anymore. He was worried about something else. What if, when her memories returned, she remembered not just their love, but all the reasons she should have stayed away from him in the first place? What if Mason was right, and her love didn't come back with her memories? What if he'd already lost her, not to the explosion, but to the truth of what their life together had really been, beautiful and terrible and always shadowed by violence? The thought haunted him as they drove toward the precinct, the hospital disappearing in the distance. Inside room 306, Grace stood at the window, watching the police car fade into traffic. "Who is he really?" she asked Ava. Her best friend sighed. "That's what I've been trying to protect you from remembering." But Grace wasn't listening anymore. Her hand had gone to her chest, pressing against a phantom pain. She could almost feel something there, some ghost of emotion too large to name. "I'll make her remember me," Raphael had promised himself, "even if it kills me." But in her hospital room, staring at the empty street below, Grace whispered her own promise to the glass. "I'll remember you, even if it breaks my heart." 3 days had passed since the arrest. Grace sat in the physical therapy room, working to rebuild strength in her legs. The explosion had done more than steal her memories. It had left her body weak, uncoordinated. But she was determined to heal, to reclaim what she could of herself. Mason Carter watched her progress, making notes on his tablet. "You're doing remarkably well," he said. "Most patients with your level of injury take weeks to get this far." "I've always been stubborn," Grace replied, though she wasn't sure if that was true. Was she remembering or just assuming? "That you have," Ella Thompson agreed, adjusting the resistance on the therapy equipment. The pretty blonde nurse had been one of her most consistent caregivers. Even before you knew Mr. Morello, you were the type to push through anything. Grace had noticed how people did that, referenced her life in terms of before and after Raphael Morello. "What was I like before him?" she asked. Ella exchanged glances with Mason. They'd all been careful about what they shared, on some unspoken agreement not to overwhelm her. "You were dedicated," Ella said finally. "You worked at the free clinic downtown 3 days a week, then picked up shifts at the private clinic for extra money. You were saving up to buy your own place." "Did I buy a place?" Another uncomfortable pause. "You moved in with Mr. Morello about 6 months ago," Mason said carefully. "Your apartment was compromised." "Compromised how?" "Someone broke in. They were trying to get to him through you." Grace processed this, continuing her exercises even as her mind worked. "So he moved me in to protect me." "That was part of it," Ella said softly. "But you also loved him very much." The words sat heavy in the air. Grace had seen the photos Ava reluctantly showed her, pictures of her and Raphael together. She looked happy in them, radiant even, but they felt like pictures of a stranger. "He's out now," Mason mentioned, trying to sound casual. "Released on bail this morning." Grace's hand stilled on the therapy bar. "Oh." "He asked if he could visit. As a benefactor of the hospital, he's technically allowed, but given the circumstances." "He's a benefactor," Grace interrupted. Mason nodded. "He donated $2 million to the hospital the day you were admitted, funded an entire new wing for trauma patients." $2 million. The number was staggering. "All for me. All for you." Before Grace could process this, Ava arrived, looking frustrated. "He's here," she announced. "In the lobby, with flowers like some kind of romantic hero instead of the reason you're in this mess." Despite herself, Grace felt curious. The man she'd seen briefly after waking, the one with dark eyes full of pain, had been arrested for violence, had donated millions for her care, had apparently loved her enough to change his life. Who was Raphael Morello, really? "I want to see him," she said. Ava's jaw dropped. "Grace, no, you don't understand." "Then help me understand. Everyone talks around what happened, who he is, what we were. I need to know." "The doctor said not to push your memories." "I'm not trying to remember. I'm trying to learn." It was a distinction that seemed to matter. Ava reluctantly agreed, but insisted on staying present. Raphael appeared in the doorway 5 minutes later. He looked different than before, cleaner, more composed. His dark suit was perfectly fitted, his black hair swept back. He carried white roses, her favorite according to the cards that had been arriving daily. "Hello, Grace." His voice did something to her insides, a flutter of recognition her mind couldn't catch. "Mr. Morello." "Raphael," he corrected gently. "Please." He set the roses on the side table, then took the chair Ella offered him. He sat carefully, maintaining distance, his every movement controlled. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Frustrated," Grace answered honestly. "Everyone knows me except me." A sad smile touched his lips. "You said something similar when we first met. You just worked a 12-hour shift and couldn't remember if you'd eaten that day. You were frustrated with yourself for losing track." "You remember that?" "I remember everything about you." The weight of his words settled over the room. Ava shifted uncomfortably, but Grace found herself leaning forward. "Tell me something else, something small." Raphael considered. "You take your coffee with too much sugar and just a splash of cream. You read medical journals for fun but hide romance novels in your nightstand. You hum when you're nervous, usually something classical, though you don't realize you're doing it." Grace's hand went to her throat. She'd been humming earlier, during a particularly difficult therapy session. "You have a scar on your left shoulder from a bike accident when you were 7, Raphael continued. "You're afraid of thunderstorms but love rain. You always eat dessert first when you think no one's watching." "How do you know all that?" "Because I watched you, studied you, memorized you." His voice dropped. "Because loving you was the only good thing I'd ever done, and I wanted to remember every second of it." The rawness in his voice made her chest ache. This man, this dangerous, violent man, spoke about her like she was something precious. "The police said you hit someone, at the hospital." Raphael didn't flinch. One of Tyler Brooks' men. He was trying to get to you. Tyler Brooks, he's the one who planted the bomb. Yes. Why? Raphael was quiet for a moment, choosing his words. He wanted to hurt me. You were. You were the best way to do that. Because you loved me. Because I love you, he corrected. Present tense. Grace looked at her hands. How can you love someone who doesn't remember you? The same way you loved me despite what I am. Stubbornly. Completely. What are you? She asked, meeting his eyes. Everyone talks around it, but I need to know. What exactly do you do? Raphael glanced at Ava, who was watching him like a hawk, then back to Grace. I run the Morello family business. We control shipping through the eastern ports, have interests in construction, real estate, and other ventures. Illegal ventures. Yes. Drugs. No, I've never touched drugs. My father did, but when I took over, I ended that immediately. But you hurt people. When necessary. You've killed people. It wasn't a question, but Raphael answered anyway. Yes. Grace absorbed this, waiting for the revulsion, the fear. But what she felt instead was a strange understanding. This man was dangerous, yes, but he was also sitting here, vulnerable, letting her judge him. Did I know, when we met? Not at first. You knew I was wounded, that I couldn't go to a regular hospital, but you helped me anyway. Said everyone deserved medical care, regardless of who they were. That sounds like something I'd say, Grace admitted. You figured out who I was about a week later. A news report about a territory dispute. You recognized me from the footage. And I didn't run. You tried to. I convinced you to have coffee first, to let me explain. What did you say? Raphael's eyes grew distant, remembering. I told you the truth, that I inherited this life, didn't choose it, that I was trying to make it cleaner, less violent, that you made me want to be better than I was. And I believed you. Eventually. You made me work for it, though. 3 months of coffee before you agreed to a real date. Grace found herself almost smiling. Where did we go? The museum. You said you wanted to see me somewhere civilized, surrounded by art instead of violence. Did it work? You kissed me by the Monet exhibit, said something about beauty existing even in darkness. The detail was so specific, so intimate, that Grace felt it like a physical touch. Ava made a disgusted sound. This is exactly what he does, her friend said. He romances you, makes you forget what he really is. Grace, this man is the reason you're here. His world, his enemies. I know, Grace said quietly. I know that. But I also know that when I woke up terrified and alone, the first face I looked for was his. I don't remember him, but something in me recognizes him. Isn't that worth exploring? Not if it gets you killed. Ryan Cooper appeared in the doorway, his expression tense. Boss, we have a situation. Raphael's entire demeanor changed, shifting from vulnerable to lethal in an instant. What kind of situation? Brooks, he's moving on the warehouses. Ethan's holding them off, but... Go, Grace said. Raphael looked at her, surprised. Whatever's happening, go handle it, but come back, I want to know more. He stood, his hand reaching for her before he caught himself. I'll come back, I promise. After he left, Grace turned to Ava. Show me the news reports, all of them. I want to know exactly who Raphael Morello is. Ava pulled out her phone reluctantly. You're not going to like what you see. I need to see it anyway. For the next hour, Grace read everything. Articles about the Morello crime family, about Raphael's rise to power after his father's death, about the violence that followed. She saw crime scene photos, court documents, surveillance footage. Raphael Morello was everything they said, dangerous, ruthless, feared. But then she found other articles. Ones about anonymous donations to children's hospitals, about protection for local businesses against extortion from other gangs, about women's shelters funded quietly, consistently. He's complicated, she said finally. He's a killer, Ava corrected. Maybe, but he's also more than that. That evening, Aria Grant appeared. The journalist had been trying to get an interview for days, but the hospital had kept her out. Tonight, she'd somehow gotten past security. "Miss Morgan," she said, slipping into the room while Ava was getting coffee. "I'm Aria Grant from the Tribune. I'd like to talk to you about Rafael Morello." Grace studied the red-haired woman. "I don't remember enough to be helpful." "That might actually make you more helpful. You can see him objectively now, without the emotional attachment." "What do you want to know?" "Why a woman like you would choose a man like him. You were a nurse, dedicated to saving lives. He's dedicated to ending them. How did that work?" Grace considered the question. "I don't know, I genuinely don't remember, but when he looks at me, I feel safe, which makes no sense given what he is, but the feeling's there." Arya leaned forward. "Has he told you about his plans? About the war with Tyler Brooks?" "What war?" "The one that started with your explosion. Word on the street is Raphael's planning to wipe out Brooks' entire operation. A lot of people are going to die." Grace's chest tightened. "Because of me?" "Because of what Brooks did to you, yes." Before Grace could respond, Hannah Reed burst in. "There's been a shooting at the docks. Multiple casualties coming in." Through the window, they could see ambulances arriving, gurneys being rushed through the emergency entrance. Grace stood, her nurse's instincts overriding everything else. "I should help." "You can barely walk," Arya pointed out. But Grace was already moving, slowly but determinedly. In the emergency room, chaos reigned. Gunshot wounds, burns, trauma, the aftermath of violence. And in the middle of it all, Raphael being wheeled in, blood soaking through his shirt. Grace didn't think. She moved to his gurney, her hands finding his. "I'm okay," he gasped, though he clearly wasn't. "It's not that bad." "You've been shot," she said, her training taking over as she examined the wound. "Through and through, looks like it missed the organs, but you're losing blood." "Grace," his hand caught hers, "I'm okay, I've had worse." That's not reassuring. Despite the pain, he almost smiled. "You said something similar the first time you patched me up." Mason appeared, taking charge. "We need to get him into surgery." "I'm coming," Grace said. "You're a patient." "I'm a nurse, and I'm coming." She held Raphael's hand as they wheeled him to surgery. Just before the anesthesia took hold, he squeezed her fingers. "Don't leave," he whispered. "I won't." She stayed through the surgery, watching from the observation deck. Her memories might be gone, but her medical knowledge remained. She knew the surgeon was good, knew the repair was clean. But she also knew how easily everything could go wrong. Ryan found her there hours later, after Raphael was in recovery. "He's tough," Ryan said. "Been shot 6 times over the years, always pulls through." 6 times. "Comes with the territory." Ryan studied her. "You don't remember, but you've patched him up before, several times. You used to joke that he was your most frequent patient." "That's not funny." "You didn't think so either, really. Used to beg him to be more careful." Grace watched Raphael sleeping in the recovery room, his chest rising and falling steadily. "Did he try to be careful?" "For you, yeah, he tried. Changed a lot of things, actually. No more direct involvement in enforcement. Started transitioning the family toward legitimate businesses. He was trying to get out completely." "What stopped him?" "Tyler Brooks. The explosion. You." Ryan's voice was heavy. "He came back harder than ever after you got hurt. Said if the world was going to punish him for being a monster, he might as well be the monster they feared." "That's not who he is." Ryan looked at her sharply. "How would you know? You don't remember him." "No," Grace admitted. "But I see him. The way he looks at me, the way he speaks about me. Monsters don't love like that." "Maybe that's exactly how monsters love. Completely, destructively." Before Grace could respond, Ethan Parker arrived, his scarred face grim. "Brooks is escalating. He hit 3 more of our operations tonight. We lost 2 men." "Raphael's in no condition," Grace started. "Raphael's fine," came a rough voice from the doorway. Raphael was awake, trying to sit up despite Mason's protests. "You just got out of surgery," Grace said, moving to his bedside. "You need to rest." "I need to end this." "By getting yourself killed." He looked at her, something flickering in his dark eyes. "You sound like you care." Grace paused, realizing she did care, more than made sense. "I don't want anyone else getting hurt because of me." "This isn't because of you. This is because Tyler Brooks is a sadistic bastard who needs to be stopped. The police won't do anything without evidence, and the kind of evidence needed doesn't come from legal channels." Grace understood what he meant. "You're going to kill him." "Yes." The simple admission should have horrified her. Instead, she found herself asking, what would the old me have said about that? Raphael's expression softened. "You'd have asked me to find another way. You'd have said violence only breeds more violence. You'd have been right. But you're going to do it anyway." "Yes." "Why?" "Because he hurt you. Because he'll hurt you again if I don't stop him. Because protecting you is more important than being the man you wanted me to be." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Grace reached out, her fingers brushing his. "What if I asked you not to? What if I asked you to find another way?" Raphael turned his hand, interlacing their fingers. The touch felt familiar, right, even though she couldn't remember holding his hand before. "Then I'd try. For you, I'd try anything." "Then I'm asking." Raphael studied her face. "You don't even remember me. Why do you care what I do?" Grace couldn't explain it. The pull she felt toward him, the ache when he was hurt, the fear when she thought he might die, none of it made logical sense. "I don't know," she admitted. "But when I saw you bleeding, all I could think was that I couldn't lose you. Not again. Even if I don't remember losing you the first time." Raphael brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. "Okay. Okay. I'll find another way. For you." Ryan and Ethan exchanged skeptical looks, but said nothing. That night, as Raphael recovered and Grace sat by his bedside, Tyler Brooks made his next move. The fire started in the hospital's east wing, the wing Raphael had funded. Alarms screamed through the corridors as smoke began to fill the hallways. Grace shot to her feet, her medical training overriding everything else. "We need to evacuate the patients." Raphael tried to stand, but she pushed him back down. "You're not going anywhere with that wound." "Grace." "Number Ryan, Ethan, help me get him to a wheelchair." The evacuation was chaos. Nurses and doctors rushing to move critical patients, security trying to maintain order. Grace worked alongside the staff she didn't remember, but her hands knew what to do, her instincts sharp. "The pediatric ward," Hannah said, running past. "The smoke is worse there." Without thinking, Grace headed toward the danger. Behind her, she heard Raphael calling her name, but she didn't stop. Children were in danger. The smoke was thick, acrid. Grace dropped to her knees, crawling below the worst of it. She could hear crying, a child, scared and alone. She found the little boy in a storage closet, hiding from the smoke and noise. Maybe 6 years old, clutching a worn teddy bear. "It's okay," she said, gathering him into her arms. "I'm going to get you out." The journey back was harder. The smoke was thicker now, her lungs burning. The boy clung to her, trusting completely. She almost made it to the stairwell when the ceiling beam fell. Pain exploded through her head, the same spot where she'd been injured in the explosion. The world tilted, spun, and suddenly she remembered. Not everything, not all at once, but flashes. Raphael's face the first time she'd kissed him, the way he'd held her during thunderstorms, the morning he'd given her the promise ring, his hands shaking slightly. The night of the explosion. "Get down!" Raphael's voice, urgent, desperate. The sound of the blast, the feeling of flying, falling, the world going dark. Grace. Present Raphael, not memory Raphael. He was there, Ryan and Ethan flanking him, all 3 men having ignored her orders to stay put. Raphael pulled her and the child clear of the debris, his recently stitched wound bleeding through his bandages. I remember, she gasped, looking up at him. I remember you telling me to get down. You saw the bomb first. You tried to save me. His face changed, hope and fear warring in his expression. Grace. But before she could say more, the world went dark again. She woke in a different room, a different bed. The fire had been controlled, the evacuation successful. The little boy she'd saved was fine, reunited with his parents. But something was different in her mind. The wall between past and present had cracks now, memories seeping through like water. You're awake, Ava said, relief clear in her voice. You scared us. Where's Raphael? Getting his wound restitched. He tore it open coming after you. Ava's tone was disapproving but softer than before. The man's an idiot but a devoted one. I remembered something. During the fire when the beam fell, I remembered the explosion. Ava leaned forward. What do you remember? He saw it first, the bomb. He tried to warn me, tried to get me away. Grace touched her head where the new bandage sat. He saved my life. And nearly got you killed in the first place by being who he is. Maybe, but Ava, I remembered something else too. The way he looked at me. The way I felt about him, it was real. Her friend sighed. I know it was. That's what scared me most. You loved him so much you couldn't see the danger. I saw it. I just thought he was worth it. And now? Grace considered the question. I don't know. I don't remember enough to know, but I want to remember all of it, the good and the bad. Raphael appeared in the doorway, fresh bandages visible under his shirt. The fire was Brooks, he said without preamble. A distraction. While we were evacuating, his men hit our main warehouse. Stole 2 shipments worth nearly 10 million. So much for finding another way, Ethan muttered. Raphael's jaw was tight. He's escalating because he's desperate. The federal investigation is closing in on him. Arya Grant's articles have been putting pressure on the mayor's office. Arya's been writing about Brooks, Grace asked. Started 3 days ago. Exposé pieces about his operations, his connections to human trafficking. Grace felt a flicker of memory. Arya sitting across from her in the cafe downstairs, asking questions not about Raphael, but about what she might remember about Tyler Brooks' operations. She's using the attack on me to go after Brooks. Smart woman, Ryan commented. Brooks can't retaliate against a journalist without bringing more heat. Which means he'll retaliate against us instead, Raphael said. We need to move you somewhere safe. No, Grace said firmly. I'm not running. Grace. I ran before, didn't I? When things got dangerous, you convinced me to hide, to let you handle it. The memory was fuzzy but there. And look what happened. He found me anyway. Raphael's expression was pained. That was different. How? You remember more now. You know what you mean to me. He'll use that. Then we use it against him. Grace sat up straighter. I might not remember everything, but I remember enough. I remember you teaching me to shoot. Self-defense moves. I'm not helpless. Against Tyler Brooks, everyone's helpless. Including you. Raphael didn't answer, which was answer enough. That night, Grace dreamed in memories. They came in fragments out of order. Raphael teaching her to dance in his penthouse kitchen. Their first fight about his business. The makeup that followed. The morning he'd promised to leave it all behind. After this last deal, he'd said, holding her close, I'll have enough to go legitimate completely. We can leave the city, start fresh somewhere. Promise, she'd asked. I promise. 3 days later, the car exploded. Grace woke with tears on her face. Raphael was there, asleep in the chair beside her bed despite his own injuries. His hand rested on the bed near hers, not quite touching but close. She studied his face in the dim light. The strong jaw, the dark lashes, the scar through his left eyebrow she suddenly remembered came from a fight with his father years ago. You were going to leave, she whispered. For me, you were going to walk away from everything. His eyes opened, immediately alert. Grace. The Riverside deal. You said after that you'd be done. That's why Brooks acted when he did. He knew you were leaving. Raphael sat up slowly. You remember. Pieces, fragments, like a puzzle with missing parts. She reached for his hand. But I remember this, the way your hand feels in mine. His fingers tightened around hers. How much do you remember? Enough to know I loved you. Enough to know you loved me. Not enough to know if we can survive this. We can, Raphael said with certainty. We already survived the worst. Did we? Because from where I'm sitting, we're still in the middle of it. Before Raphael could respond, Mason appeared. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here who insists on seeing you both. Tyler Brooks walked in like he owned the place. He was younger than Grace expected, maybe 30, with blonde hair and cold blue eyes. He wore an expensive suit and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Raphael was on his feet instantly, despite his injury, moving between Brooks and Grace. Relax, Morello, I come in peace. Tyler held up his hands. Just wanted to see the miracle patient myself. Get out, Raphael growled. In a moment, first I have a proposition. Tyler looked past Raphael to Grace. Hello, Miss Morgan, you look well for someone who should be dead. Grace felt the memory slam into her, Tyler at a charity gala, watching her with those same cold eyes, warning her that Raphael would get her killed. He'd been right. I remember you, she said quietly. Tyler's smile widened. Do you? How fascinating. What exactly do you remember? You trying to recruit me, offering me money to leave Raphael. Ah, yes. You turned me down, said love was worth more than money. How's that working out for you? Raphael moved, but Ryan and Ethan held him back. Here's my new offer, Tyler continued. The lovely Miss Morgan comes with me. Willingly, in exchange I end this conflict. No more attacks, no more violence. Everyone walks away breathing. Never, Raphael snarled. I wasn't asking you. Tyler kept his eyes on Grace. I'm asking her, what's one life against dozens? Very noble, very heroic. The kind of thing a good nurse would do. Grace stood slowly, using the bed rail for support. You think I'd trust you? I think you're smart enough to know this only ends one of two ways. Either you come with me, or Raphael and I destroy each other, and you watch everyone you care about get caught in the crossfire. There's a third option, Grace said. You leave, now, never come back. Tyler laughed. And why would I do that? Because Aria Grant is in the hallway with a photographer. Because the FBI agent assigned to your case is in the cafeteria downstairs. Because every move you make is being watched and documented. Tyler's smile faltered slightly. Grace continued. I might have memory problems, but I'm not stupid. You came here because you're losing. The investigations are closing in. You need leverage, and you thought I'd be it. Clever girl. Raphael always did like them smart. Get out, Grace said, before I start screaming and bring every cop in the building running. Tyler studied her for a moment. You really don't remember everything, do you? If you did, you'd know I don't make empty threats. Neither do I. They stared at each other, predator and prey trying to figure out which was which. Finally, Tyler stepped back. This isn't over. Yes, it is, Raphael said quietly. You made a mistake coming here, showing your face, making threats in front of witnesses. Tyler's eyes narrowed. What witnesses? It's your word against mine. Raphael pulled out his phone, showing the recording app. Actually, it's your word against your word. For the first time, Tyler looked genuinely concerned. Leave the city, Raphael said. Tonight, don't come back, or this recording goes to the FBI, the press, and every enemy you've made. You're bluffing. Try me. The two men stared at each other, years of rivalry crystallizing into this moment. Tyler broke first. You'll regret this, Morello. The only thing I regret is not killing you when I had the chance. After Tyler left, flanked by federal agents who'd been waiting to tail him, Grace sank back onto the bed. Is it really over? She asked. With Brooks, maybe. He's smart enough to know when he's beaten. Raphael sat beside her, careful not to jostle his injury. But Grace, my world, my life, there will always be another Tyler Brooks, another threat. I know. Do you? Do you really remember enough to know what you're choosing? Grace looked at him, this man who'd been a stranger days ago and was now. What? The love of her life. Someone she used to love. Someone she was falling for all over again. I remember enough, she said. I remember you holding me during thunderstorms. I remember you learning to cook because I worked late shifts. I remember you reading medical journals to understand my work better. Those are good memories. I also remember the fear, the men with guns, the night someone broke into my apartment. She paused. I remember begging you to leave that life. Raphael's face was etched with pain. I was trying. I swear I was trying. I know, she took his hand, but trying wasn't enough, was it? No, it wasn't. They sat in silence, hands linked, the weight of their past and uncertain future pressing down. So what now? Grace asked finally. Now you heal, you remember, you decide what you want. What do you want? Raphael brought her hand to his lips. You, always you, but only if you choose it knowing everything. And if I don't, if I decide it's too dangerous, too hard, then I let you go, and I spend the rest of my life making sure you're safe, even from a distance. Grace studied his face, seeing the truth there. He would let her go. It would destroy him, but he'd do it. I need time, she said, to remember more, to understand who we were and decide who we could be. Take all the time you need. But time, as always in Raphael's world, was a luxury they couldn't afford. The news came 3 hours later. Tyler Brooks was dead, shot in his car on the highway out of town. Professional hit, clean and quick. Did you? Grace started. No, Raphael said firmly. I gave him a chance to run. Someone else decided he shouldn't get far. Who? Raphael's expression was grim. Someone who benefits from both Brooks and me being weakened. Someone who's been waiting for an opportunity. Another enemy. In my world, there's always another enemy. Grace closed her eyes, suddenly exhausted. When she opened them, Raphael was standing to leave. Where are you going? To handle this, to protect you, to do what I always do, deal with the violence so you don't have to. Raphael, wait. But he was already gone, Ryan and Ethan with him, leaving Grace with only Ava and her partially returned memories. This is what it was like, wasn't it? She asked Ava. Him leaving to handle dangerous things, me waiting and worrying. Ava nodded. Every time. Sometimes he'd come back bloody. Sometimes he wouldn't come back for days. But you stayed. You always stayed. Why? Because you loved him. Because you believed you could save him. Did I save him? Ava was quiet for a moment. He changed for you, became better, softer in some ways. But Grace, a leopard can't change its spots. Not really. Grace touched the bandage on her head. The memories were coming faster now, clearer. She could almost see their whole story, the beautiful beginning, the complicated middle, the violent almost end. What if I remember everything and still love him? Then you're either the bravest or stupidest woman I know. Can I be both? Ava laughed despite herself. God, I missed you, even if you're going to break my heart by choosing him again. I haven't chosen anything yet. But even as she said it, Grace knew it wasn't true. Her heart had already chosen. It had chosen before her memories returned, recognizing what her mind couldn't. Raphael Morello was dangerous, complicated, and probably bad for her. He was also hers. The gunfire started at 3 a.m. Grace woke to the sound of shattering glass and Ava screaming. Armed men were storming the hospital room, and Raphael was nowhere to be found. Where is he? One of them demanded, pressing a gun to Grace's temple. The cold metal against her skin triggered everything. Every memory, every moment, every second of her life with Raphael came flooding back in a devastating rush. Their first kiss in the rain outside the diner. The first time they made love, slow and careful, Raphael treating her like she might break. The morning she'd moved in, finding he'd already made space for her things. Every fight about his business. Every reconciliation that followed. The moment she'd realized she was pregnant, 2 weeks before the explosion. She'd been waiting for the right time to tell him. The baby she'd lost in the chaos. I don't know where he is, she said, her voice steady despite the revelations crashing through her mind. The man hitting her brought her back to the present. Blood filled her mouth, copper and familiar. Don't lie to me. Tyler Brooks is dead and Morello's cleaning house. Where is he? I said I don't know. Another blow. Ava was sobbing in the corner, held by two men. Where was hospital security? Where was anyone? Then she heard it, Raphael's voice in the hallway, cold and lethal. Let them go, Torino. Torino? The family Raphael had been fighting when she first met him. She remembered now, Vincent Torino, who'd taken over after his father's death, who'd been waiting for his chance at revenge. Come in slowly, hands visible, Vincent called out. Raphael appeared in the doorway, hands raised, Ryan and Ethan behind him. His eyes found Grace's face, saw the blood, and something dangerous flashed in them. This is between us, Vincent. Let the women go. No, I think they'll stay. Insurance. Vincent was younger than Raphael, hungrier, more vicious. You killed my father. Your father was selling kids. He deserved worse than what he got. He was family. He was a monster. Vincent's gun pressed harder against Grace's temple. Careful, Morello. Your woman's already damaged goods. Wouldn't take much to finish the job. Raphael's control snapped. He moved faster than Grace remembered him capable of, crossing the room in 2 strides. The gunshot was deafening in the small space. But it wasn't Raphael who fell. Vincent Torino dropped, a red bloom spreading across his chest. Behind him stood Detective Torres, her service weapon still raised. Nobody move, she commanded. Chaos erupted. Vincent's men went for their weapons. Ryan and Ethan responded. Grace grabbed Ava, pulling her behind the bed as bullets flew. Through it all, she watched Raphael fight with a desperate fury she'd never seen. He was protecting her, using his body as a shield even as he fought off attackers. A knife caught him in the side. He didn't even slow down. A bullet grazed his shoulder. He kept fighting. It was like watching someone who decided they'd either save her or die trying. Maybe both. Raphael, she saw the gun before he did, aimed at his back. Without thinking, she grabbed the medical tray and threw it, disrupting the shooter's aim. The bullet went wide, hitting the wall inches from Raphael's head. He spun, disarming the man with brutal efficiency. Then, suddenly, it was over. Vincent's men were down or fled. Police were flooding in. Raphael stood in the center of the carnage, blood seeping through his shirt from multiple wounds, eyes locked on Grace. Are you hurt? He asked. She laughed or maybe cried. It was hard to tell. Am I hurt? You're bleeding from 3 different places. Are you hurt? He repeated, stumbling toward her. No, Raphael, sit down before you. He collapsed before she could finish. Grace caught him, her returned memories making her hands sure as she assessed his injuries. Get me supplies, she barked at the frozen medical staff. Now, and call surgery, tell them we're coming. She worked with the efficiency that had made her one of the best trauma nurses in the city, stemming blood flow, checking vitals. Don't you dare die, she whispered to Raphael as they wheeled him away. Not now, not when I remember everything. Everything, he managed to ask. Everything. Including the baby, but that conversation would have to wait. The surgery took 6 hours. Grace waited outside, ignoring her own injuries, ignoring Ava's pleas to get checked. I can't lose him, she said. Not again. You didn't lose him the first time. I lost everything else. The words came out before she could stop them. Ava frowned. What do you mean? I was pregnant. When the car exploded, I was 2 weeks pregnant. Tears ran down Grace's face. I lost the baby in the trauma, the doctors. They said it happened before I even got to the hospital. Oh, Grace, Ava pulled her close. Why didn't you tell me? I couldn't remember. And then when I started to, I think part of me didn't want to remember that part. Does Raphael know? No, I never got the chance to tell him. They sat in silence, the weight of all that had been lost and might still be lost pressing down on them. Mason appeared, looking exhausted but relieved. He's stable. The surgery went well. He's asking for you. Grace found Raphael in recovery, looking pale but alive. His eyes tracked to her immediately. You remember, he said. It wasn't a question. Everything. Even the parts I wish I could forget. She sat beside him, taking his hand. You were going to propose, weren't you? The night of the explosion. Raphael's eyes widened slightly. How did you? The reservation at Le Bernardin, the way you kept touching your pocket, the conversation with my father's grave the week before. She squeezed his hand. I would have said yes. Would have. Things are different now. Raphael's face fell, but he nodded. I understand, after everything. I lost our baby. The words hung in the air like shattered glass. Raphael went absolutely still. What? I found out 2 weeks before the explosion. I was waiting for the right moment to tell you. Tears ran down her face. The trauma. The doctors said it happened immediately. Raphael pulled her down to him, holding her as tight as his injuries allowed. They cried together, mourning a loss he'd never known about and she'd only just remembered. I'm so sorry, he whispered. God Grace, I'm so sorry. It wasn't your fault. Wasn't it, if you weren't with me? Then I never would have had those 2 weeks of pure joy, knowing I was carrying your child. She pulled back to look at his face. I never would have known what it felt like to be completely, utterly happy. Do you think you could be happy again, with me? Grace considered the question. I think happiness isn't the goal anymore. Peace is. I can't offer you peace, not in my world. Then change your world. Raphael studied her face. You mean it? Ryan says you were already trying, before the explosion. I was, but after, when I thought I'd lost you. You became the monster everyone expected. Grace traced a finger along his jaw. But you're not a monster, Raphael. You're a man who makes monstrous choices to protect what he loves. Same difference. No, because a monster wouldn't be capable of changing, and you are. What are you saying? Grace took a deep breath. I'm saying that I remember everything, the good and the bad. I remember why I loved you and why I was terrified of loving you. I remember begging you to leave the life and you promising you would. I failed. You haven't failed until you stop trying. She met his eyes. So I'm asking you again, leave it, all of it, walk away. Tyler's dead. Vincent's dead. There'll be a power vacuum, wars, chaos. Let someone else deal with it. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. Grace's voice was firm. You choose me or the life, peace or power, love or fear. Raphael was quiet for a long moment. If I walk away, we'll have to leave the city, start over somewhere new. Okay. I'll have to give up everything. The money, the connections, the protection. We'll figure it out. People might come after us, old enemies with scores to settle. Then we'll face them together. Raphael reached up, touching her face gently. You died for 3 minutes on that operating table 3 weeks ago. Did you know that? Grace shook her head. 3 minutes where you had no pulse. 3 minutes where I thought my world had ended. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I would burn down the entire city to keep you safe, but if walking away is what you need, then that's what we'll do. Really? Really? Ryan can take over operations. Ethan can handle enforcement. They've been preparing for this anyway. When do we leave? As soon as I can walk without bleeding. Grace laughed, the sound surprising them both. So, a week. Maybe 2. They were interrupted by Arya Grant, who'd somehow talked her way past security again. I'm sorry to intrude, she said, not looking sorry at all. But I thought you should know. My articles on Brooks and Torino are going live tomorrow. The FBI is using them as part of their RICO case. Good for you, Raphael said flatly. The thing is, your name features prominently, as the victim of their violence. Arya smiled. The mayor's even talking about a commendation for your brave stand against criminal elements. Grace laughed. You're joking. I never joke about irony this delicious. Arya looked at Raphael. "You're being painted as a hero, the businessman who stood up to extortion and threats. It's a perfect exit strategy if you're smart enough to take it." "Why would you help me?" Raphael asked suspiciously. "I'm not helping you, I'm helping her," Arya nodded to Grace. "She saved my nephew during the fire. Tommy, 6 years old, hiding in a closet. She could have died getting him out." Grace remembered the boy now, his terrified face, his trust as she carried him through smoke. "Besides," Arya continued, "everyone loves a redemption story. Bad man turns good for love. It'll sell papers for months." After she left, Raphael and Grace sat in comfortable silence. "A hero," Raphael mused. "My father would roll over in his grave." "Good, he was a bastard." Raphael laughed, then winced as it pulled his stitches. "Don't make me laugh. Don't say funny things." "I love you." "That's not funny." "I know," he grew serious. "Grace, if we do this, really do this, there's no going back. Once I walk away, I lose all my power, all my protection. We'll just be normal people." "Good." "With a very abnormal past." "Everyone has baggage." "Not like mine." Grace leaned down, kissing him softly. "I love your baggage. I love your scars and your complicated past and your dangerous present. I love all of you, but I need to love you without fear. Can you give me that?" "Yes." It was a simple word, but it carried the weight of revolution. Raphael Morello, feared crime boss, was choosing love over power. 2 weeks later, they stood in Raphael's penthouse, now empty of everything but boxes. Ryan and Ethan were there, along with Ava, who'd finally accepted that Grace had made her choice. "The accounts are transferred," Ryan reported. "The legitimate businesses are in the holding company we discussed. The rest," he shrugged, "the rest is mine to deal with." "You sure about this?" Raphael asked his oldest friend. "Someone has to keep order. Might as well be someone with a conscience." They embraced, brothers in everything but blood. "Where will you go?" Ethan asked. "West," Grace said. "Somewhere with mountains and no memories." "Colorado," Raphael added. "I bought a place there years ago, never used it." "Of course you did," Ava muttered, but she was smiling. They said their goodbyes, promised to keep in touch, knowing they probably wouldn't. This kind of clean break required distance. As they drove out of the city, Grace watched Raphael in profile. He looked younger somehow, like the weight of his crown had finally lifted. "Any regrets?" she asked. "Only one." Her heart clenched. "What?" He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box, the same one he'd been carrying the night of the explosion. "I never got to do this properly." "Raphael, I'm not proposing, not yet. You need time to heal, to remember, to be sure." He handed her the box. "But when you're ready, if you're ever ready, it'll be waiting." Grace opened the box. The ring was perfect, simple, elegant, nothing like what a mob boss's woman would wear. Everything like what Grace would choose. "How long have you had this?" 6 months. I knew after our first fight that I wanted to marry you." "Our first fight was about you having someone's legs broken. And you threw a medical textbook at my head. You ducked." "Barely." They laughed, and it felt like freedom. 1 year later. The mountain clinic was small but well-equipped. Grace had been working there for 8 months, using her maiden name. No one knew their history, their past. Raphael ran a construction company, legitimate and growing. His hands, once used for violence, now built homes for families. They lived quietly, peacefully. Some nights Grace still woke from nightmares, flames and gunshots, and the face of a child they'd never meet. Raphael would hold her, whisper promises of safety and love. Some days, Raphael still checked the locks 3 times, still cataloged exits when they entered rooms. Old habits died hard. But they were healing, together. The morning Grace finally put on the ring, Raphael was making breakfast. She walked into the kitchen wearing it, saying nothing. He turned, saw it, and dropped the spatula. "Is that a yes?" "That's a yes." He crossed the kitchen in 2 strides, lifting her, spinning her around. They were both crying and laughing. "When?" he asked. "Whenever you want." "Tomorrow." "Raphael." "Okay, next week." They were married a month later, in a tiny ceremony with just Ava as witness. She'd flown in specially, complaining the whole time about the altitude. "You know this is crazy, right?" Ava said as she helped Grace with her simple white dress. "All the best things are." He could relapse, go back to that life. He could, but he won't. "How do you know?" Grace smiled, hand going to her still flat stomach. "Because he's about to have more important things to protect." Ava's eyes widened. "You're not." 8 weeks, I found out this morning." "Does he know?" "I'll tell him tonight." "Grace," Ava hugged her carefully, "are you scared?" "Terrified, but also happy, so incredibly happy." That night in their mountain home, Grace gave Raphael the pregnancy test. He stared at it for so long she started to worry. "Raphael, we get a second chance," he whispered. "After everything, we get a second chance." "Yes." He dropped to his knees, pressing his face against her stomach. "I swear," he said to their unborn child, "you will never know violence, never know fear. You'll grow up safe and loved and normal." "Raphael, I swear it." Grace ran her fingers through his hair. "We both will, together." 7 months later, when their daughter was born, Raphael held her with hands that shook. She was perfect, 10 fingers, 10 toes, her mother's green eyes. "What should we call her?" Grace asked. Raphael looked at his wife, his child, his entire world in one hospital room. "Hope," he said. "We should call her Hope." "Hope Morello," Grace smiled. "I like it." Outside their window, the mountains stood tall and protective. No enemies lurked in shadows. No violence waited around corners. They'd made it out. Against all odds, they'd made it out. Raphael kissed his daughter's forehead, then his wife's. "Thank you." "For what?" "For remembering, for choosing us, for giving me something worth changing for." Grace pulled him onto the bed beside her, their daughter between them. "You were always worth it. You just needed to believe it." "I love you." "I love you too." "Even though." "Especially though," Grace interrupted. "Our past made us who we are, and who we are is exactly who we need to be." As Hope slept peacefully between them, Grace thought about memory and love, about second chances and redemption. She'd lost her memories once, but found something more important, the knowledge that love transcends memory, that some connections run deeper than thought. Raphael had been right that first day in the hospital. He'd promised to make her remember him. He had. But more importantly, he'd given her new memories to cherish. A proposal on a mountaintop, a wedding in wildflowers, the moment they'd heard their daughter's heartbeat. The past would always be there. Scars on Raphael's body, gaps in Grace's memory, ghosts of violence and loss. But the future stretched ahead, bright and possible. "What are you thinking about?" Raphael asked, watching her with those dark eyes that had first captured her so long ago. "Everything," Grace said, "and nothing, just us. Us is good. Us is perfect." Hope stirred, making small baby noises. They both watched her, mesmerized. "She's going to be trouble," Raphael predicted. "I can tell already. Like her father. And stubborn like her mother. A dangerous combination." Raphael smiled, the expression transforming his face. "The best kind." As the sun set over the mountains, painting the hospital room gold, the Morello family began their new story. One without violence or fear, without enemies or empires. Just love. Just hope. Just them. Thank you for watching to the end. Please remember to click the subscribe button and make sure you like this video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Thank you.